Hello, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. If you're 13 years old or younger, you could go get your mum and dad if you would and just ask them to watch this first before you do. And if they say it's okay, that's fine with me. For everybody else who is subscribed to the channel or watched my videos to this point, we've come a long way since this inserted rock that you see now. And my son found that in a river twice. And we said that, and that has led us to realising where it was I found it. It was on the very same line of longitude that if I went down through the South Pole and up the other side, I come to this inserted image here, which is the very event that tilted our globe, and that it was my understanding of the megaliths and pyramids and such things around the globe that led to the understanding of where we are today, which is, I've called this a cycle part 4 again, mostly because we're back here to our image and I wanted to describe to you these flat cycles here and why they take place in the message left us here. I would suspect that when the planet gets laid over here, it gets laid flat on its axis. At the point in traverse that moves out beyond Mars, which is the outer ring here of rotation of Earth, this is the inner ring of Earth, this is the rotation of Mars. If the planet is pushed over on its axis, it only takes one incident to knock the planet over, and then from that point it moves out on its own. But in the movement outwards here, it is moving in a situation where it's in the horizontal plane. Okay, that's what's happening here. And that when it gets pushed back in here, that it's stood up once again by flipping it. So if it's laid over flat that way, it's stood up that way, and that's how they achieve the changing the rotation of Earth on its axis. But that's where they're telling us they do that. It's on the way back in. The cycle then starts here with the globe either spinning clockwise or anti-clockwise on its axis and going through the same process. When this is laid over here, and the reason why, one of the questions I left in the last was why is that the case, and I'll show you why I believe that is the case. I brought this image back up just so to explain that once they put the water inside the planet and cycle it round the inside of the planet around the core, which is what I believe this rock that we looked at again. If we look at this rock again here and then look at the way it's cut down here, it's bored through here, but the arrow's going down to say that this is what they do. They drain the level of the ocean, put it inside the planet, and I haven't gone on with that other than I'll show you this inserted image here of saying that at microscopic level they say the same thing. I will show you a couple of rock images later that show this the same thing again. But this is the point of thing here is the round part that's here. It's saying once we've lowered the ocean, we can hit here with the meteor to cause the issue. In this instance, it seems like they're wanting to slow us. They're probably wanting to slow the globe to aid it to be stood up, right? I know that sounds opposite than what we would think we need to do, but I don't know. That just seems to me to be what they're trying to tell us, is where this is found as well, or the end of the ocean there in the Red Sea. You note there is that circle is there, so it's below the level of the water still, but the water level is way lower than what it was, which is why I believe we're seeing this lip come over here, that this is the landmass up here and normal water level. One thing that we've got to understand, that if they lower the water level across the ocean to 30, 40, 50 feet, well then obviously the air temperature or the top of the surface of the ionosphere and everything else will vary just as much. That will be a situation where the air temperatures will get cooler on the land masses without taking anything else into effect, like having to put the moon in between us and the sun. I would expect that what we're going through is going to be a colder period. I will explain as I go along. But that's one thing I wanted to make you aware of. If we go back to our rotating wheel then and realise that we've if we have in actual fact used tunnels that would be, in this, my opinion, in the South Pole, and I'll show you why I believe that's where they are. They've got tunnels drilled down to fill the ocean, the inside of the Earth up with water in this ring around the core of the planet, which they need to do, and it works the same theory as this. If that was rotating mass or weight, it's the same thing. It makes everything on the outside of it here to the core of the point here. It's light, there's no weight, there's no mass. I think they do that with the system itself, the solar system, and they fudge a system, so to speak, and spin a mass of water around the core of the planet. If we come back to this crop circle that was taken in England and discuss what its process was in respect to the cycles and the unnatural cycles of the Earth, and the two rings of rotations being the inner one, the one we're on, this being the outer one out beyond Mars. If in actual fact they're laying the planet flat, whether it's spinning clockwise or anti-clockwise, these movements, if they're being depicted by this very diagram that they've left in the field of grain here, once I've said before, grain, the Voynich manuscript itself also has reference to plants. We look like I said and suggested in my last video that possibly they may not, 16 hours a day may not be what actually transpires, but I think that is actually the case. But yeah, that's why I would expect they're telling us here that this movement here is linear in both ways. Now, I've said that you couldn't live on it, but it depends on which way that it's laid. If it's laid with the pole laying flat, but if it's laid with it slightly at an angle like so, and that it still has a precession, obviously you might still have periods of time here, I don't know. But it certainly would seem to me that one pole is going to be favoured here. That it's always going to be favouring the sun, and the North Pole would be mostly in dark, all year round, every year for the whole 6,000 years. So this is what I mean. It's a bit unusual here. You can see that it traverses, as it traverses out, it is not linear in respect to 1-for-1 ratio the whole way though. That's what is not linear in that respect. I'm saying the linearity is whether it goes that way or that way, which makes me say they are both travelling out and traversing to the outer ring within the planes of both the horizontal and the vertical rotating planes of the sun. Of course, the horizontal one's running anti-clockwise and the two vertical planes of the sun are running clockwise, and that's what keeps this linear in respect to both sides. That's what I mean. They're not linear in respect to movement or curve, because that isn't. And that's what makes me think that we're seeing the possibility that the Earth may start off like so, but by the time it gets out here, I've suggested this before, I'm not a physicist, but I would see that maybe what we're seeing by the time it gets out there, it's almost level and flat, in that the precession has moved that much that it's almost coming back up to being level again, you know what I mean? When we come back and have a look at this still picture that I took off a Mystery History 2 documentary, which was questioning whether this was referencing an underground aerial or underwater aerial that had been discovered in Antarctica, I think somewhere. But I wanted to discuss this and stop this right here, because I saw this as us being told about the 1,000 years cycles or movements back in from the outer ring of Mars, right? And that this was exactly like we've shown you before. The globe was getting lifted back up, which is why we have this hand coming here and lifting the globe up when it got out there. That it only took one event for us to get out there, or for the Earth to make that transition and movement. That the E here meant the end of the cycle. The D10 here was the 10-hour day, because we were coming off the outer ring. The movement of the planet is so quick, both in traversing through space. The planet's speed in the outer ring here is 66,000 miles an hour, which is twice as fast as what we're moving through space at the moment. So, and its rotational speed is only giving us a 10-hour day. And that is when we've just started the cycle that we are just on, okay? Which consisted of a couple of other unnatural cycles. Well, they are certainly all managed This is the 1,000 year period, so it's from the outer ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 year cycle to get us back again. And that each one of these events is, in this instance, we're on the outer ring, so the first event is knock us over. So 1,000 years we go like that. Then the next thing, we stand us back up. For another 1,000 years we go like that. I would imagine these events here, 3, are to slow the rotational speed, because we're now at the end of the day, or day 10 is at the end of the cycle. So these 3 here are going to be both the end and start of the new cycle, which is the one coming in here, which is already standing up. I'm believing this. From here we are going 1, 2, 3, 4, see? 4,000 year cycle, and I've seen that somewhere else where it's a 4,000 year off cycle. We are being knocked back off the plane of the sun here and being given a 4,000 year cycle right there to be able to get back into the inner ring. And that's what I wanted to show you. It was gravely important, because I'll show you one other thing that reflects the same thing. If I bring us back to this image now, where we see this megalith, where I was suggesting this is in actual fact reflective of the very 4 cycles themselves and breaks required to slow the planet's motion as it hits the horizontal plane of the sun. The reason I wanted to show you that motion of the planet being moved back in every 1,000 years is, and suggested to you that from the second 1,000 year it's off plane with the sun. As soon as they stand it up straight, they send it off plane with the sun. And if you're a physicist or a planetary scientist or such, I would believe the lesson here is they are now able to move the whole mass. You see how we're not getting much of a mark here? It's because the rotational speed of the planet must be slower here. It's coming up to go to a slow period, so therefore it'd be just the same if you hit that going quickly as going that way at 1,000 miles an hour that way. It doesn't make a lot of difference whether it slows or speeds, it causes the same issues. So in the lesson here we're getting is the movement from 4,000 years to the inner ring that it takes to get to the inner ring is being done in the same time. In other words, a time frame. I'll show you what I mean. This is the other image that I showed you last week in last week's video, or the cycle part 3 and part 2, where we discussed that what happens is the Earth's plane of travel itself is shifted. So it takes 6,000 years for it to go around like so, and that process on both inner and outer ring are used to rotate the Earth around the sun in the opposite direction. So in other words, anti-clockwise or clockwise around the sun. And that is that process. What they're saying is that process can do that in 4,000 years and not 6. So that is what they're saying at that particular point, and why they're doing that. They put it off plane with the sun, and they're saying to you as an astrophysicist, ask yourself why it is able to do that in 4,000 years, where for the one we've just finished, that took 6,000 years. That's what they're asking you as a physicist to work out why. Because as soon as you go off this horizontal plane, you're in the rotating vertical planes of the sun. What is it that makes that go quicker in one instance than another? When we come back to the Sacsayhuaman walls in Peru, all this, albeit that isn't the walls, inserted image here are the walls you're all familiar with. This is an aerial view. The walls that you're familiar with seeing go along the complex like that and down the other end. They break into 3 at about 10 o'clock, I suppose, if you want to call it that. Now I wanted to come back here because reflective of what we've just spoken of, this, in my opinion here, we are now looking south, is reflective because of where it comes in here and where the structure leads to the very point of contact on the Earth's surface is this inserted image, yet again the bottom of South America. This one here is reflective just above the equator here, being that this is north, reflective of the one that stopped the tilt of the axis, right here in this inserted image, which is the impact in Central America just above the equator. That is why we are seeing this displayed as it is. This is where we, in my opinion, are being told we are knocked off the plane of the sun, this ring here, for a period of 6,000 years here. There's our 6,000, we're going that way, we're spinning anti-clockwise, we're going around the sun. That's how we're finishing. We're finishing in this direction, so our 6,000 years is here. And where I said to you the 4,000 years is the other cycle, I believe that's what we're seeing here. I have said at one stage before that that wasn't correct, but I believe what we're seeing here is exactly that. We're being told that we were going in that direction. The last time that happened, 4,000 years, our 4,000 years would have had us going this way, which is exactly correct. We would have come up cycling anti-clockwise, but going clockwise around the sun, which is exactly what we were doing, to be going anti-clockwise around the sun now, because that's the only thing that's happened is this 6,000 year unnatural cycle now that brings us back to going anti-clockwise around the sun. So that is where we're seeing another 4,000 years here, and I'm certain that is what they're telling us, that they know how to move the planet, or the plane of travel of the planet, so that that whole cycle can take only 4,000 years and not 6. I just wanted to show you the image of this rock here, what we're seeing when I put something under the microscope. Something like this may draw my attention. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 black marks like that. I live in Australia. It's on our flag and such things. That's why I stopped here. You may think that is an irregular thing or totally natural, and you could say yes, that's quite correct, Brian. And I stop here also because I see these white lines through here again, and realise that there's a lot more to this little spot on this rock here than meets the eye. So what I'll do is I'll press play and I'll show you that that's exactly what I did. We can see the black marks here quite clearly. They are the Southern Cross in shape, and you can see it's the same picture. And I'm just now turned off the microscope light, and I'm going to let the light go on here to the side light and show you what I'm seeing when I shine with my LED panel, and use the microscope light as off now. And as you can see his face is here. That's his forehead and his nose and his lips and his mouth, and he's wrapped up in something warm. And I would expect when we see images like this left on the rocks, they're here to tell us it gets very cold, and that's what we're seeing there without doubt. That's what is being portrayed, is that it seems that even when we get the 16-hour day with their management, it's still far cooler than what I expect we are used to at this present point in time. Even though it's getting really, really hot now, I would expect the message we're getting told here is it's very cold. It's quite the opposite, and I've seen people rugged up in a very similar manner many times before. So I thought I'd show you that, and I'll show you something else on this rock. I'll find it very shortly. Now I've got the camera zoomed in just a little bit on this rock. I wanted to show you that the reason I stopped here was a round, very round object that was in this part, and that's why I initially focused. And it also looked to me like there was a person's face starting to appear in that portion of the video. So this is why I stop at certain rocks. I just stop at certain areas, and there's places where I would like you to take note of, is here, where this, when I get the light in the right spot, that really, I'll let you decide what you see this. I actually videotaped or named this video The Conference. I'll let you decide what you see up here, but down here I stopped because I saw, like I said, this round, very round circular thing. It looked like it was a man's glasses to a degree when he had his mouth open, and other times he's got his mouth closed, and you see that's a very common thing. But there's some very odd things happen along this portion here. About there you start to see people all lined up here, in, you know, it looks like a conference and people are sitting in, you know, I know it's difficult, you won't see that if I can't produce that well enough for you to see it, but I wanted to show you that. But once again, we're getting told there were more boreholes in the ground here, that there are things underneath the ground, and like I said, that you still see the human content here, and that they know about what's going down here, and the people that come here to do it, some of them are humans, some of them aren't, obviously. That would be the case. Like I said, there's a few spots there where it just looks like there's a whole lot of different people, but they're not all human. They're all sitting along in a line here, listening to whatever's being going down here. So it just said you've got to get it in the right light for it to be very, very prominent. When you see the inserted image that we have on the screen at the moment, we look at that as a digger, or the likelihood that it is representing exactly that. Now I'll bring you back to the video again, and I'll just show you. This is off my just a rock I got out of the river swimming the other day. I'll show you what it looks like. I picked it up because it just looked like a one that would bear a few interesting things on it, in which case it did. This was another one where we were looking at, in my opinion, a digger, you know, a digger machine here going through a mountainside. I'll move it along a little bit so you get a closer look at it. But here where it's come out of a hole here, and you can see it gets very prominent to where it's actually come flying out of here, round here, and it's digging out. And this is what they're telling us they can do. They can bore underneath the continents. And this part here again, you can see where it's sort of made out like it's come flying out of that hole there and going through the process of digging on the side here. It's when you get it in the right light. Here you'll see I've moved this away again now to get another, you know, another feature altogether. So I'm saying you'll get totally different impressions of what it is you're looking at from what it is you're seeing. But as you can see, that is without doubt, I would expect exactly that again, showing us borer or digger going through. They're a mechanical device. They can just send them on their way to do what they need to do. The reason I wanted to show you those diggers was that I wanted to show you this, and I've shown you before that we would appear to be seeing bridges chopped in half or cut in half. In this one it's a highway. Then I realised that probably what they're telling us here when I say a highway, that's exactly what this looks like to me, that there's roads going along here that have been severed by these UFOs that are coming through here. That's why these are on the river rocks. I think what they're trying to tell us in the severing of the bridges on the rocks, which is repetitive over and over, is that's where they come in to cut the land masses away when they move the land mass out of the way. That's what they can do. They can move a greater part of the landmass. It's exactly why I believe this message is on these rocks. They cut up the rivers themselves where there are no houses. That's what they must do. They must do something like that and stay, you know, divide one half from another and up along the mountain ridges and back down another river and move the whole lot of it out of the way. I don't know. It just looks like that's what they're trying to say here. They seem to have UFOs coming in across here, and the highways, if they are what they are here, being cut as they're coming through the landmass here. So I just thought I'd put that one up. It looks a little bit more spectacular when you've got the lights coming in from this direction. Like I said, it's only just a matter of slight light change or light angle, but to there it would appear to me to be reflecting pretty much exactly that. A situation where they've come along and they're saying, no, well, we have to come along here to move this massive land out of the way to get the comet to land, you know, and I say comet because it could be comet, it could be a big chunk of ice off the South Pole that they hurl back at us. I don't know, but I'm saying to you, would appear to me to be what they're saying there. I'll just get you to watch this portion over here on this rock as well. It's the same rock again, which is the face rock. And I just want you to watch what you're seeing in this portion here and this portion here as well. It's the same thing again. We're seeing these diggers with the big blades on them slashing through the ground. You know, it's on repetitive. And I think we're seeing this here as an indication what they do is just they bore holes through the ground, you know, and that's, like I said, the way to get the imagery is not, even to obtain the imagery that you're seeing is, you know, it's not something that you do coincidentally. Same here as well, you see the digger blades coming in here. They're grinding through the mass of the earth underneath, and that's what they're saying they can do. Well, I'll finish off with this rock here, which is the swim hole rock. I'll show you, just insert it again for you so you can see what it looks like. And I'll just let that play as we're letting this finish off, because it's actually really nice colour, and sometimes the effects you get from moving the light around on a rock and the imagery left there for us is really quite amazing. I found this one also to be very informative in that respect. It told me a fair bit about, once again, if you're thinking they're, well, coincidental, I don't think so. We see once again the bridges or whatever it is cut and moved out of the way whilst they've got to get these diggers through here to move the landmass out of the way. Otherwise you lose a lot of the landmass. So this is what I'm seeing in the message here repetitively, over and over. I'm just going to let that play because I actually found some of the imagery that came out in this portion of this rock was really quite amazing. And if I let it play for you like this, and you can get it reasonably well recorded, you can also go back and stop and play. I don't mind you doing that. It's, like I said, the message is here for all of us. But some of the imagery there is amazing. And when you get yourself a good rock, and like I said, I'll insert this again, it's not an overly special rock when you look at it, but some of the rocks can be very surprising in that you would think they not have much colour on them. In the face rock that I showed you in the first instance, it's a grey rock. It doesn't look anything spectacular, but once you start shining the light through, you start to see exactly what's going on, you know. Here's another one that once you start changing the light here, you see that you can also end up with what looks like a digger in this portion and up in another hole on that side there, like, you know, you'll see that quite often as well. But I just thought I'd let this play only because I think once again we're being shown in certain light angles the severing of the rivers through here, you know. They've got to come, which is why the messages are on so many of the river rocks. It's on all of the rocks, because that must be where they come up when they have to do this moving the landmass thing. I would expect that that's actually what they're telling us from this type of thing. I will show you one more thing with this part of this video. Now I've just moved only now, just that it's the same part of the rock or same part of the video, but I've just moved just a little bit further along. You could see the bottom of this on the other part of that video, and I've just come up a little bit higher to see what I could see in here. And this is what I was saying to you, that quite often this is how they'll depict how they lower the ocean levels as well. They drill down like this in the ground, and they pipe down the water, you know. And like I said, it puts a question mark here because it's saying stop and have a look at what you're getting shown. This is very, very, very intelligent race of people that can put such a thing on not just one rock, but every rock in a river has this sort of thing on it. And when you know how to shine the light, how to follow the instructions, what you see before you is amazing. So I just wanted to show you that, and like I said, I'll finish up with that today and just say, well, thanks very much for keeping up with my videos to this point. This is Brian Whitten and ET Art. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will leave you pondering as to whether that is totally coincidental that has ended up on that rock in that way, or it is an actual fact, an instruction for us, just as the pyramids and the megaliths are. Thank you very much. This is ET Art and Brian Whitten. Bye bye.